Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of our F122 My Team Career Mode here on the channel. I hope you're all having a great day today. We head to my home race here in the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal. Very excited for this one. You know, last season we came here, we didn't have very much fortune on our side. We actually crashed out of that race in the closing 5 laps. So we're trying to not repeat that here today. And as every race goes on, I get more and more concerned though about the reliability of this car because we, so far, have not had a single mechanical failure on our car. But that's a concern because we know our luck's going to run out at some point, so I'm just waiting on it. When's it going to be? Hopefully not today in the Canadian Grand Prix now, as we were getting ready for some practice. It actually was going to be a bit of a wet start to the weekend. Free practice one was wet, but it did dry up late in the session, and that's when I would actually go out and make my lap times here in the race strategy programs and whatnot. But qualifying as well, at least Q1 and what looks like Q2 is going to also be raining, and then it might rain into Q3 based off the approximate weather prediction. So it's going to be a wet start of the weekend, but the race overall going to be a completely dry Grand Prix. So the setup still focused on that dry, weather. So we come through though in free practice one and putting down some decent times. I was having to hustle this car a little bit to make sure I was, successful with the Delta times here with the race strategy program. So the Delta was a little bit difficult to beat. Won't lie, that was a little bit concerning. You see, we were down to P21 in practice and only about 0.4 of a second. Not even better than Nicholas Latifi, as it's a home GP for myself, Nicholas Latifi, as well as Lance Stroll. And Lance Stroll is actually right from the Montreal area compared to Latifi and myself, who are both actually from more of the Toronto area, but still not that far away, about I think 6.5 hours or so from Montreal, or to Montreal I should say. But we come through here into Q1, you see the track's wet, it's raining. However, I noticed everybody was going out on the soft compound tire. I said, okay, that's not what I was expecting to see, so I went out on the soft compound tire as well, and it was certainly damp. The conditions weren't great, however, the soft compound tire was still better than the intermediate compound tire, so it was just like, damp but not wet enough to put on that intermediate compound tire. So you can see myself struggling a little bit here, running 2 laps actually in this first run, hoping that we would find some pace in this car. And I had found about 3 or so tenths now, 0.4 of a second, nearly half a second more than my first lap. And as we go down through this final chicane, is so technical through there to make sure you hit it perfect, but don't go over the boundaries a little bit and cut that corner and get your time invalidated. But we get P6 currently, but by the time we came through to start our final attempt here late in the session, as things seem to be drying up just a tiny bit, it's still raining, but we were P16, so we're the last car currently in to Q2, and I didn't think that was going to last knowing our record here, so our track record. But we come through into the final chicane. This is where we actually gained the time right there because we hadn't really gained a whole lot, so we gained about a full 10th, and we're currently P19 to the line though. That 1/10 is going to be enough to move us into Q2, so very, very happy with that effort. P16 now. Look at the bottom of the grid. Magnussen, Pourchaire, Albon, Ricciardo, Latifi, Stroll all end up missing the second qualifying session. Now, it rained all throughout Q2 until the very end of the session, so I didn't make a lap until the very end when the track started drying up. So everybody is rushing out onto the circuit to get their lap in here at the very last moment. The track was getting drier and drier and quicker and quicker, so I was hoping to be, one of the final cars to cross the line here to finish qualifying, and that was going to be relatively the case here. There was still a few cars coming after me, but we're going to head down this front straightaway and we'll see where we come through to cross the line. Currently, it's P7. We managed to get P7, and that would be enough. It would hold on. It would stay up there on the board. P7, we would advance into Q3, so other drivers that were going onto that soft compound tire, they might have made their lap a little bit early, so they weren't able to really get good enough of a time to get into Q3. So we have made it into Q3 for the second time this season. The first one being Imola with the wet qualifying there. We actually qualified on pole in a shock turn of events there, but it's not going to be the case this time. We go dead last in Q3. I couldn't do anything. It was P10 and we were way far off once the conditions were optimal for everybody. So it's going to be Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton, your top 3 with Vettel and Tsunoda with a very strong qualifying effort there in P5. Let's head to the grid.
It's time once again then to go racing here in Montreal, the second largest French-speaking city in the world, and home since 1978 to the Canadian Grand Prix. If you want flat-out racing, you've come to the right place this weekend, as it's full throttle for 59% of this 2.7-mile circuit. peaking at around 210 miles per hour going into the final chicane. But that speed requires discipline, and there are more than a few close walls here just waiting to punish drivers with a heavy right foot. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Vettel, Yuki Tsunoda, and Russell. Gasly, Mick Schumacher, Norris, and Golden Boy. Joe, Ocon, Carlos Sainz, and Perez. Oscar Piastri, Bottas, Lance Stroll, and Nicholas Latifi. Ricciardo, Albon, Théo Pourchaire, and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
We are ready to go, lights out here from the Canadian Grand Prix as Mark comes over the radio telling me to just not get a little bit too overconfident, I guess, here, and make sure I don't do anything stupid, as we are ready, though, to go. Lights out from this 10th starting position, as Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen will be starting on that front row as we come through to the gate here. Actually, I overshoot the gate for the first time in this F122 My Team career mode. I would end up doing it in my home race, so we lose a good 3-4 feet, I would say, right there just about now, as we are ready, though, to finally go. Lights out, starting P10 here from making it into Q3. Can we get a top 10 points day in Canada? It's going to be 5 red lights. They're going to hold us for a few extra moments, but Leclerc and Verstappen are going to lead the way as this lights out, and we are underway at this Canadian Grand Prix. And you see Leclerc with a very strong start. Hamilton sends one up the inside of Vettel, 3 wide in the background there. That's George Russell, Tsunoda, as well as Pierre Gasly, all scrapping, wheels out there, going at it now, as you see Vettel and Hamilton going side by side. Oh, they have a little bit of history through this little section right here, but it's going to be, I think, Hamilton coming out on top of this battle. Yes, it is. Lewis Hamilton holds off Vettel currently now in that Porsche Red Bull now, as you're going to see. He's in a bit of a sandwich between the 2 Mercedes of Hamilton as well as George Russell, who was able to stay ahead of the 2 AlphaTauris there of Tsunoda as well as Pierre Gasly. So overall, everybody hanging on pretty well on this first and opening lap. Now, there was some forms of contact. There were some cars, some more midfield backmarker cars that picked up some wing damage actually on the start of this Grand Prix. However, for myself, it was not a great start. I had actually dropped down to about 13th, 14th place here. Not a good start for myself. You see me trying to go around the outside of Lance Stroll. Somebody got some wing damage right there as well. You saw some debris flying there in that hairpin now, as you can see as well. One of the other drivers right there is Magnussen with some wing damage. He's had a miserable season so far. Leclerc and Verstappen going wheel to wheel in that final chicane. They're going to be side by side down this front straightaway. Hamilton's right there ready to attack as well, down into turn 1, and here goes Verstappen up the inside. Oh my goodness, you see the comparison of tires as well. Verstappen has the upper edge. He's on the medium compound tire versus Leclerc, who's on the hard compound tire, so this should be an easy pass for Verstappen, but Leclerc is not going to give it up easy. He holds on for the time being. As you can see as well, we were about to have some drivers making some pit stops there. You can see several cars, including an Alpine, a Haas, as well as an Aston Martin, but the battle for the lead continues. Here goes Verstappen again into the next chicane. They're going to be wheel to wheel. Who's going to come out on top of this battle right here? Hamilton just behind them, actually, with a bit of a mishap right there, so he drops down to 4th place as Vettel is going to go through into 3rd place there. As you can see, again, still side by side into the hairpin, Verstappen as well as Charles Leclerc. They are not giving it up now, and this is one heck of a fight from Leclerc, who's, like I said, on that hard compound tire versus Verstappen's mediums, but it's going to be the straight line speed of that Red Bull Porsche that gets him out in front, and Verstappen can now try to take off here from the lead. As you can see myself here, an update now finally to us here on lap 2, coming to the end of lap 2, running in this 13th position just behind fellow Canadian of Lance Stroll. A little bit of chaos right there, some stack ups, and look at that, we're going to get a 2-for-1 special there out of the chicane up into B11 just behind Zhou Guanyu. Sainz going to try and repass me around the outside here down into turn 1, and we're going to be side by side here now through turn 2, but we're not the only one. Look at up there just in front of us, a few rows ahead. They are going at it. Bit of a wild start to this race. Norris and Tsunoda going going wheel to wheel again here into the next chicane, and that brings Zhou Guanyu right into the mix. He's going to take it 3 wide into the hairpin. This is not a good idea. Who's going to come out of this one with the short end of the stick here? And they all run into the side of each other. Yellow flags and behind us now as we exit the hairpin, and actually the safety car is going to come out for Nicholas Latifi, who was appeared to crash out, and yes, that's what happened on board with him. He runs into the back of Valtteri Bottas, and I mean, that's a very Nicholas Latifi or Go-Tifi moment if I've ever seen one right there. So the safety car comes out after just a few laps, and it has been a wild start here to this Canadian Grand Prix. I remember last season when we came to this Canadian Grand Prix, it was actually a very, very calm race. Nothing happened until I wrecked myself, so that was a bit embarrassing in that final chicane. However, we would get ready to go back racing now, and we were up into the 10th position after some more cars pitted in front of us here. So some strategies as well being mixed up because of the safety car as we get back underway on lap 6, and wing damage being the main issue of why a lot of these guys are coming into the pit lane on these opening laps here. Now only 6 laps in to this Canadian Grand Prix here in Montreal now, as we would settle in briefly here in the P10, but Carlos Sainz sends one up the inside, lap 7 there. He was not leaving me a lot of room to work with on the exit of the corner. Don't blame him. He sailed it off in there, and a very nice pass from the Spaniard now, as we would actually be offered a strategy change, but I decided to keep it the same. We're coming in on lap 15 to put on that hard compound tire now as we start this 10th lap of the race, actually just setting my personal best fastest lap of the race so far now as we try to close in on Sainz, who stuck past Tsunoda as well as Zhou Guanyu, and Piastri's out of the session. Safety car is out, and there you see the live scene. Piastri's had a huge moment here on this final chicane in the Wall of Champions, and look at this. He's side by side with Ocon, and oh my goodness, Esteban Ocon with the clown moment of the season, locks up, and then he decides to just skid across back across the track and cause a big accident there. Safety car's out, and the pit lane gets flooded. Everybody just about is headed into the pit lane except for some of the front runners, which this is a bit of a surprise. Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, as well as Lewis Hamilton have all remained on the track, as well as a few others, including Lando Norris. So we're going to exit the pit lane here as I'm trying to hustle to get in front of Lance Stroll, but now everybody that's pitted for this hard compound tire can make it to the end of this race. So I don't know why we saw as well, like I said, Verstappen, Leclerc, Hamilton stay out, because they just had an opportunity, to come in right there. They did not take it. So they are going to be off strategy, and now they still have to pit one time, while nobody else that just took the hard compound tire, which was a lot of drivers, none of them have to pit anymore. So we're back underway on lap 13. We're only on lap 13. It feels like it's been a whole Grand Prix with the amount of chaos already that we've had, and there's still plenty of time for more. Way crazier than last season's Canadian Grand Prix. Actually, I briefly run into the back of Carlos Sainz, making sure immediately that the car is okay with the front wing there. Fortunately, we got a bit of a break on that one, because I certainly ran directly into the back of him. Zhou Guanyu just in front of Carlos Sainz. He's been struggling a little bit for pace as I nearly end up in the Wall of Champions. A bunch of cars start coming into the pit lane here the next time around. Ocon, by the way, with a 5-second time penalty due to that accident that he had ignited with Oscar Piastri and sent Piastri out of the Grand Prix, our former teammate there for Trackhouse Racing. But Leclerc as well as Norris and them, they were all coming in towards the pit lane as well. So by the time things would cycle out, it would be a situation, as you can see, Perez actually making a pass on me up the inside of the hairpin. So after Verstappen, Leclerc, Hamilton, as well as a few other drivers, the midfield cars that had pitted now, it was going to put Sebastian Vettel, George Russell, as well as Yuki Tsunoda in 3rd place. We just have to wait for it to fully run its cycle, and it had now done that by lap 19. We were P8. So it's Vettel, Russell, Tsunoda, your top 3 currently here on lap 21, right behind Perez and Sainz, who's stuck behind Zhou Guanyu. Yellow flag's up ahead, actually, and it's going to be for George Russell right there. You see the smoke pouring out of the back of the Mercedes. One of Leclerc's championship threats is going to be out of the Montreal Canadian Grand Prix, and that's perfect for Leclerc. We'll run up on him in a big stack up right there, but Russell unfortunately out here in Canada now as we move up another position into P6. The chaos continues. They're side by side up there in front of us. Carlos Sainz catches Zhou Guanyu a little bit off guard right there, and he is able to get in front of him now as myself and Perez, but we still end up stuck behind Zhou. Now I'm realizing though, as well, Leclerc and Hamilton as well as Verstappen, they're having a tough time passing the cars behind us. We have a very realistic possibility of getting some points for the first time this season. We do have points in a sprint race in Imola, but no actual top 10 finishes this season in a Grand Prix, but we might change that right here in this Montreal Canadian Grand Prix. Now, as you can see, Zhou Guanyu loses the spot finally to Perez. I try to fight around around the outside of him. Lap 24 closing in on the final 10 laps now, so I'm going to be on this left side, but I wasn't really committed enough to send it into this next chicane side by side, and Joe actually has a terrible apex right there. But finally on the front straightaway, here's my opportunity again a lap later to make the pass happen here into turn 1. Now 11 to go, and we're going to be wheel to wheel around the outside, and now we're going to have the preferred inside lane here into turn 2, unlike what we had last time around. And sure enough, we get past Joe. Yellow flags behind us. It's Lewis Hamilton actually who's had a moment, and he was 3 wide going down into turn 1. Here's a replay with Daniel Ricciardo actually and Max Verstappen. He sails it off into turn 1, and he would have to wait to come back on the track until the traffic had cleared. So a big error right there from the 7-time world champion and a driver who's won this specific race so many times. Yellow flags again behind us. Safety car is out immediately here with 10 laps to go. The Canadian Grand Prix craziness continues. It's a demo derby at this point. It's Max Verstappen, who never even looked like he attempted to make the final chicane in front of Daniel Ricciardo, who tears his front wing off with the wall of champions, as well as you can see Mick Schumacher involved as well heavily there, losing his front wing. I don't think Ricciardo got any damage there, but what an absolute mess. Valtteri Bottas, who's been kind of non-existent all day long, he's been staying out of the chaos, but just can't seem to really go anywhere. He was right in the middle of that though, now up in the 9th place. The safety car is out again. We now have George Russell, Piastri, Latifi all out of this Grand Prix as we get our late race update here onto the safety car period. But it's Sebastian Vettel who's in position to get his first win for this Red Bull Racing team since they reunited. Obviously, they won 4 world championships and so many races together a long time ago before Seb went to Ferrari in 2015. But here they are trying to finally reunite and get a race victory. Now, some drama happened under the safety car actually. Charles Leclerc under safety car had run into the back of Kevin Magnussen, who had an engine failure or mechanical failure. Magnussen's out of the race. Leclerc damages his wing, and we're going to have to see him come into the pit lane at the end of this lap right here. But unfortunately for Leclerc, we're going back green. So Leclerc comes in to fix his wing. You can see in the track map he is certainly in the pit lane, and a big mistake from him, as well as his championship hopes to continue to fall over the course of the last few episodes that have been so rough with him. And it's going to unfortunately continue on into today. Now, something hugely important, look at the bottom of the screen with the radio message here. Information on Vettel, the leader. He's got some kind of mechanical problem. The craziness just continues to add on. It's like adding, wood to the fire that's already burning, or fuel to the fire to just make it take off at this point, because the leader of this race, Sebastian Vettel, has a mechanical issue, and Yuki Tsunoda had run him down very quick. By the time we come through to lap 32, he is all over the rear diffuser of the 4-time world champion Yuki Tsunoda, and what has been a wild top 5 here so far because of the chaos. He is trying to win this Canadian Grand Prix. He's side by side with Vettel. I overshoot turn 1 because I was trying to watch the battle for the lead. But Yuki Tsunoda, with ease, takes the lead of the Canadian Grand Prix. Vettel drops down to 2nd. He was holding up Sainz. He was holding up Perez, which brought me right into the mix. Thank you very much, Sebastian Vettel, my favorite driver in F1. Unfortunately, not going to win this race now. As you can see, Perez as well as Sainz doing whatever they can to pass him. Perez goes around the outside. I nearly run into the side and nearly into the back as well of Carlos Sainz. So we fade in behind him here on the exit of the hairpin as well. Down into this final chicane, you can see we finally settle in for a moment, but Sainz with a big slump right there allows me to get clear of him. You can see how much pace the Red Bull Porsche is lacking. I send one up the inside of Vettel into turn 1. We barely hang on and stay on the track down to turn 1. We have now moved into a podium position for the first time in our Formula 1 career, and what has been a crazy event here in this Canadian Grand Prix now as they're going at it behind us still, and Zhou Guanyu misses the corner. He's into the wall, and as well, Pierre Gasly is pile driven into the side of Zhou, and you can see he's going to be out of the race. And as well, Lewis Hamilton's come to a stop there. He gets back going, but look at this. I mean, Zhou makes a huge error, and Gasly, not much he can do there. I mean, he could have maybe not turned into the side of Zhou, but he takes himself out. No safety car due to the fact that it was too late for a safety car to actually come out and have a restart. So we stayed green this whole time, and things got worse for Zhou Guanyu. Actually, he would go for a spin in the same chicane a lap later after coming into the pit lane to fix his front wing. It was terrible for him. But we come to the final lap of this Grand Prix, and Tsunoda leads over Perez comfortably, who's not in the DRS of him. Unfortunately for me, though, we know we don't have a lot of pace in this car when we finally get things spread out, and we're just, kind of legitimately going to the maximum pace of this car as well. A big mistake there in that final chicane. This is the fight for the final spot on the podium. Sainz is closing here for this McLaren down into the final hairpin. It's not a contest up front. Yuki Tsunoda is about to become a Formula 1 winner unless he makes a huge error error in this final chicane and it crashes the car, which is pretty unlikely at this point. He has a nice comfortable gap, but for myself on the other hand, it's a completely different scenario. Sainz has the DRS, I'm running out of ERS here, the battery is nearly down to 0, and look at the momentum and speed he has. He nearly sends one up the inside, he kind of makes me choke, and I sail it off into the chicane way too deep. Yuki Tsunoda wins, here is a Formula 1 winner, and Carlos Sainz is going to get us at the line. A drag race it was, and we just threw away the final spot on the podium because I simply just got done by Carlos Sainz. I mean, I saw the proximity radar and I saw him trying to peek up the inside into the final chicane, so I sailed it off in there. But not only did I sail it off in there, I hesitated on the turn in because I didn't know if he was actually going to send it or not. So it was a complete choke on my end. One of those moments where I wish I could have used a flashback and got the podium, because what a story it would have been with this crazy race to not only have the race that we just did, but also be on the podium in our home Grand Prix one season after crashing out of that Grand Prix. Very, very frustrating that I just threw it away like that. Sometimes, though, that's just the way it goes. Absolutely fantastic, though, to see Yuki Tsunoda pick up the win. I wanted Sebastian to get that win there, but I'm very, very happy that Tsunoda's AI was able to pop off right there and get the victory as well. You know, AlphaTauri as well as Trackhouse Racing, we both switched over to Porsche Power as Red Bull powertrains came to a close and moved to Porsche. So nice to see now that we got Porsche getting not only Red Bull to victory lane or the top step of the podium, but as well AlphaTauri, and hopefully at some point soon it's going to be Trackhouse, but we got a long way to go. And I mean, unfortunately for us, where we really lack here in pace in this car is in the powertrain department. We have the worst powertrain in the grid, or on the grid, so we definitely need to focus on continuously upgrading that. And that was actually one of the first things I was looking at here post races, upgrading the powertrains, which you'll see here in a few moments. But there you see Vettel down to P5, Verstappen with a nice rebound there in P6. Unfortunately for Leclerc and Hamilton, who had chances to close in on Verstappen, well, they both end up outside of the points. So definitely the craziest race we've had in this F1 career mode so far. There was so much going on, and at the end of it all, Verstappen increases his point lead over Leclerc, and now he has a 41-point gap. In what was at the very beginning of the season, I was thinking Leclerc was going to have a repeat of last season. Absolutely not the case now. Leclerc has, over the last handful of races, has been having a very, very rough time. But you see, actually, we're going to rush a crankshaft upgrade here on the powertrain and just try to get this powertrain going, because we got some really big upgrades on the way that could put us to the third worst team on the grid, which would be a pretty nice improvement. So nice points as well to get to for the team here. Fourth place still at the end of the day. Best finish in our F1 career. Fantastic. It was because of the chaos that we got it, but we'll take it anyway. We can get it, as George Russell said in Spa as well. Into the next one, we will head to Silverstone. I'm excited for the British Grand Prix. If you guys enjoyed, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought. That would be so appreciated. I will see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.